A big thanks to Gymnastic Planet for supporting this episode. Gymnastics is a challenging sport, but having the right tools in your gym bag really does help. Gymnastic Planet is a leading manufacturer and distributor of essential training kit. They provide the best quality products, including world-class speed equipment, handguards, and chalk. They also specialise in club services like venue design, maintenance, and installation. Backed by decades of experience, from competing and coaching to club management, Gymnastic Planet aims to help gymnasts succeed and enjoy their craft. If you'd like to find out more, visit gymnasticplanet.com. In 2015, Kelly Simm was part of the British women's gymnastics team that won the team bronze medal at the World Championships in Glasgow. Kelly represented Team England at 3 Commonwealth Games, winning 2 gold medals, a silver and a bronze in the process. The World University Games is the second biggest global sporting event after the Olympic Games, and in 2015, Kelly became the all-around champion in Gwangju, South Korea. Kelly officially retired at the beginning of this year and is now using her gymnastics experiences to positively impact the next generation. And this is her story. Kelly, thank you. I'm going to tell everyone that was listening, we just messed up the intro the first time, so I was laughing my head off, so that's probably why I've got red cheeks. But it's great to have you here, Kelly. We've not had a guest for 4 weeks, so it's really nice to sit in front of someone, and you're only the 3rd female athlete we've had on in gymnastics, coming from the sport of gymnastics. So just to start off with, Kelly, tell us what you're up to right now. Obviously, you retired at the start of this year. What does life look like at the moment?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, first of all. I'm excited to be here. Life at the moment is crazy. It's weird coming from a sport which you've done kind of your whole life, which was so kind of structured. You knew what you were doing every day. And coming into this year, it's just been so sporadic. I've done so many different things and I'm still really trying to navigate it. I think it's a bigger process than you probably think, or what you know, but than a lot of people think. But I'm having so much fun. There's been so many opportunities, which I'm so lucky for. And I'm doing a bit of school visits, a bit of club visits. I'm working at my local university, kind of helping the dual career athletes there. And just kind of saying yes to a lot of different things and seeing what I enjoy and what I don't.
And was that a conscious effort, Kelly? Did you tee those opportunities up before you finished and announced your retirement, or is it just something that's come along?
Yeah, I tried to. I had a surgery last year, so I was kind of trying to decide what I wanted to do. And I was very conscious that I was getting older and that I needed to kind of have a plan. I've never been someone who knew what I wanted to do as a job, so I really enjoyed the school visits and I was doing them a little bit already around gymnastics. So I thought that's kind of a good place to start. There seemed to be a lot of demand for it and you learn so much in your gymnastics career and kind of through university as well. So I kind of set that up as I was getting towards the end of my career and kind of just started there really. And yeah.
Was there anybody that helped steer you in that direction? Had you watched any of the other athletes, any of your teammates do a similar thing?
Yeah, I think a few people kind of did it around training. And also at my university, there was a wheelchair rugby athlete, Aaron Phipps, and he did a lot of it. And he really kind of took me under his wing quite early on. And I went to watch him do a few kind of school visits. And he taught me a lot how to kind of do outreach and how to get those schools and get those events and how to deliver. So he was a big influence, kind of helping me set myself up as almost like a bit of a business to start with.
And it's such an important skill, isn't it, being able to tell your own story and speak in front of people. Is that something that came naturally to you when you started doing it, Kelly, or is it something that you've had to work at and become more confident at?
Yeah, I hated it. I think I'm naturally quite a shy person anyway. It takes me a little while to kind of come out of my shell to people. And I remember from such an early age, I was being kind of put in front of people and told, I'll tell them how you won this medal or kind of, tell them about your experiences because it was so unique, gymnastics, and not many people did it. But I used to get so nervous. I hated it. And it kept happening so much where I just thought, right, I need to try and embrace it. There is demand for it. Yeah. I've got a cool story to tell and I feel like I can help a lot of people. I just need to get that confidence. And it's still growing. It's still, I feel very comfortable at schools and things, but different environments, I'm still learning how to kind of give the audience, try and target it for different audiences. I can talk to 4-year-olds and then there's adults as well. So it's trying to still learn how to pitch it and how to, tell my story in a really good way that's going to benefit them. So I'm still learning, but I'm growing in confidence, I think.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, put me in front of 1,000 children, not a problem. Put me in front of maybe people that are my own age, and then I'd straight away panic. I'd be like, whoa, how do I pitch this? I'm not quite sure. And I think I'd be more conscious of what they thought of my story or me. But yeah, in front of kids, I think for any athlete maybe that's coming to the end of their career, maybe going into the school they went to and talking is such a great place to practice, right? Because if you make a mistake, it's okay.
Yeah.
it's fine. The kids don't mind. They're there to listen to your story, and it's going to be better than the lesson they were supposed to do. So did you find that in the beginning when you were going into schools, it was like a great place to practice? And would your advice be, let's say there's someone that struggles with public speaking, but is almost in a position where they have to do it. How do you get over that fear? Do you just have to keep practicing it? Is it repetition, like training?
I think so. I think if you do anything enough, you do grow in confidence. I think gymnastics has massively taught me that, we were scared every day. Like, gymnastics is terrifying and skills are very scary, but I think it's taught me you can overcome anything and it's not a barrier. And I think I have that attitude in a lot of things I do at the moment, like to just try anything, and it doesn't matter if you don't like it or if you fail. So I think I've got that mentality. But I think just build on it, ask for help. I've asked so many people for advice and tried loads of different things in schools I go to, and kind of reflected a lot. So if something didn't feel like it went as well as it could, I'll think, okay, what bit didn't work and how can I change it? And I think being a gymnast helps because you stick a video on or you do a flip and you've got their attention.
It's quite it's an easy win. I often think, what do swimmers do?
Honestly, yeah.
Like, what do they do? Because as a gymnast, if you're like, right, the kids seem bored, they're yawning,
yes.
Let's do a backflip, and then you're like the coolest person in the world.
It's kind of a cheat way, isn't it, to just get their
It's
respect?
definitely a cheat code, yeah. Oh, amazing. Kelly, let's go back to the start. How did you find your way into the sport of gymnastics? I think typically we think of very hyperactive young boys, right? They've got all this energy and can't sit still. But quite often it's the same with the young girls that get into gymnastics, right? What was your story and how did you get into the sport?
Yeah, I just think kind of by fluke, really. I was trying lots of things when I was younger. I was doing kind of swimming, I tried ballet, tried trampolining, and my friend went to a local gymnastics club, so I just went along with her to try it, really. There's no extravagant story.
Okay.
My parents didn't do gymnastics, they didn't know anything about it, but I just went along to try one day, and then I think my mum said my coaches came out and they said I didn't cry and I worked hard, so that was like a tick in to kind of be invited back, which is crazy. And then they asked to see, so my mum picked me up and they asked to see my dad as well, to look at kind of their stature, and they were both quite small, which is kind of a good...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so they really asked to look at your parents?
Yeah,
oh,
and
no
I think
way.
that was kind of my ticket into the squad, that, I worked hard, I didn't cry, my parents were small. So, yeah.
No way. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And was that the club you stayed at throughout your whole of your career, Kelly, or was that just the club you started in?
Yeah, it was. It moved facilities halfway through, but
Okay.
it was Dynamo was the club I started, and Keith and Debbie were the owners of the club, and they were my personal coaches from probably the age of 12 or 13. So I was really lucky to kind of have that consistency, and it feels like such a family, and that they've known me from when I was tiny. So it's really nice to have gone through it with them.
Well, I had the pleasure of coming to your gym last year, and I saw you there, and I did a coaching day, and it struck me how much of a family environment it felt like. Like, everybody worked together, men's and women's, which was something that was quite alien to me when I was a kid and I was training in Nottingham. It was very much men against the women. We didn't kind of communicate. But also, you're quite isolated in that part of the country as well. It's far away, right? It's very far away. What was that environment like growing up in Dynamo and the club environment that you grew up in?
Yeah, it was really nice. You obviously had your own little groups, and we all worked really well. Obviously, gymnastics is tough, so there's you have to work really well with your coaches. But I always enjoyed being there. I always felt like we were a really good fit with each other. Keith and all the coaches I kind of had until I got to Keith as well, they were all, really hard worked, really disciplined, and I was that as an athlete as well. I like to work hard, and so we worked really well together. And obviously you change your relationship as you grow up, and sometimes it's tough and you have some bickers, or sometimes, but it helps that you know each other so well. And Keith all my coaches were so positive, and that massively helped me kind of keep going for as long as I could into my career.
Did you have a lot of early success, Kelly? Were you one of those kids that did really well from the get-go, or were you more of a slow burner, or someone that
definitely a slow
peaked
burner.
a little later on? Yeah, I had the knobbly knees and the flex feet, which isn't typically great for gymnastics, and I wasn't very flexible, so I had to work really, really hard on that side of things. And even in my local club, in my group, I wasn't even winning out of those guys for a long time. I think hard work kind of defined my career. I had to stick at it and work really hard, and I didn't see the GB squad or internationals in my future at all. It was fun, and I loved being there, and I worked hard. And as I stuck at it, as I worked harder, it came, but it was, a lot later. I didn't make the GB team until I was first year senior, so 16, which is... Oh, wow, really?
Which is very late for...
especially for somebody on the female side of the sport, right?
Yeah, I was in the England squad at 14 to 16. But I wasn't a natural at all. I really had to, I think I failed my elite grade 3 times before I then got into the British. So there's a lot of knockbacks, which probably in hindsight helped me for all those kind of tough times you get towards the end of your career when you start picking up the injuries or kind of things like that.
And do you feel like that did help, having that slower kind of, I guess, baptism of fire? You know, you get some of those kids that are like the British champion from the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Do you feel like it helped with it being almost a slower process for you? It kind of slowed things down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was still training all the hours under the sun and competing exactly the same. I think it built my resilience and it built my determination more than if the results were just coming.
Yeah.
I knew I had to work for things. I knew I had to keep working hard. And I think it helped my attitude more than anything when I did kind of get there.
What strengths did you come to the gym with then, Kelly? You obviously spoke about having the knobbly knees and the toes and not being flexible, but what strengths did you bring to the gym? You know, what were your talents that you came in with? Because, you know, it's quite easy to sit here and say, I just worked really hard, but there must have been something that your coaches saw straight away, other than the fact that your parents were both small.
Yeah.
What were those strengths that you had early on?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say about yourself, isn't it? But I liked the conditioning side of things. I liked working hard to get stronger, so I think they came probably more naturally than the other gymnasts. And I was quite fast twitch, so learning those skills, I could spin quickly, and I found that those side of things easier. So maybe to pick up like those skills a bit, or I found like the double somersaults a bit easier to kind of get hold of.
Were you quite brave? Would you be somebody in the group that would say, I'll try it first? Or you'd be too shy to maybe say to the coach, I'm scared? Were you that type of athlete, or not so much?
I don't know if Keith would disagree, but I think I was quite brave.
Okay.
I think I was very obedient as well. If Keith said do it, I'd do it.
Okay, right, yeah.
Or if the coach said. So I think I was. And I think the bravery changes as you get older. I think when I was younger, yes, you don't have the fear. You don't really, if you fall, you bounce back up. And I did. I bounced back up all the time until I was older. I didn't have injuries until I was a lot older. So I think I was braver at the start, and it gets a bit more nerve-wracking as you get older.
What's it like then, Kelly, making that step up to the senior team at 16? That must, at that point, feel like a huge step for you, right? Because all of these girls are very well established. They're big names, lots of them. You know, at 16, you can essentially go and compete at the Olympic Games. So you're in a squad with Olympians, potentially Olympic medalists, world medalists. What does that feel like as a 16-year-old that's trained all this time? What age were you, Kelly, when you started?
6 when I started.
Six. So 10 years it's taking you to make that step, take that big step to get onto the senior national team. What was that like? Remember what that was like? Yeah,
I remember being petrified to go to Lilleshall, just because, I think Beth was on the team at the time, who was obviously a massive idol, and, Becky and everyone. And I never pictured myself really getting there. And obviously I knew I had a lot of work to do even once I was in the squad to kind of build my way up to be competitive, to make the teams. And I just really, I think, wanted to impress. I wanted to impress the natural coaches. I wanted to fit in, and all these girls had their teammates and their bonds for so long. So it was catching up, not just in the gym, but on the conversations and the social outside, and learning, the national squad's so different to your club environment. So I was nervous for a while, but so grateful to be there as well. What
were the biggest differences, Kelly, between the environment there at Lilleshall and the national team, and then your club environment? What did you notice straight away? What stuck out? Yeah, I guess just the expectation that you put on yourself, but also the coaches as well. You have to almost rise to another level. You want to be there. You want to be able to do the same as everyone else. And I guess in the gym, you get comfortable with your home environment, don't you, at home? Whereas you get there and, you just want to be on it all the time. Mm-hmm. And was it what was the intent? Was it more that, were you training the same hours when you'd go and train with the GB team? Or was it more like a different intensity? Because I always used to feel when I go into Lilleshall, there was a bit of pressure all the time. Yeah. And it was that trying to prove yourself, right? Yeah. But it almost felt like every day was a control comp when you were there, whereas you could relax in your club a little bit.
Yeah, I think the hours were similar. It's probably more condensed though when you're at Lilleshall. So I'd maybe do maybe 6 hours for 2 days in a row at home, and then have a day off and then do another. Whereas I think we were there for 3 or 4 days at a time, so it's probably just more in a shorter period. And then you have all the outside things and all the little extras that you don't really do at the club. So whether you have the physios or whether you're doing hydration testing or a little bit of extra conditioning at the end, or little things like that, which probably make you sore as well, because the conditioning, you do different things when you're at squad, which I just wasn't used to.
Yeah. And when did you make your senior debut, Kelly?
I would do, kind of I think GB versus France versus Switzerland was probably my first one. So some internationals like that and some World Cups. But then Commonwealth Games in 2014 with you was my first kind of, the big one.
And how old were you at that point? Because you're 2 years younger than me, right? I always thought you were quite a bit younger than me. You're only 2 years difference.
Yeah, I look young, I think. Everyone says.
So do I. If I have a shave,
Yeah,
I look like
really.
my sister if I have a shave.
No, yeah. I think I was 18, 19. 18.
Okay,
at that point,
19.
yeah.
And that was a great competition, right? What were your memories of that Commonwealth Games, that first Games? Because you're in a team full of big athletes. 2014, when I think about it now, it almost seems like, I'm not going to say the peak of this kind of generation that we've been through the last 10 or 15 years, but right there in the middle of 2016, 2012, it's when the men's and women's teams were both doing incredibly well, and there was massive depth. I know for the men's team around 2014, there was like a team almost for the Commonwealths, the Euros, the Worlds. There was a lot going on. And what was it like being in and amongst all of that at that time? And do you look back at that time between 2014 and 15, now being retired, as like, that was kind of my peak there?
I feel it was the beginning for me, so it didn't really feel like a peak, but I felt like a deer in the headlights there, to be honest. It was all so new, just the village environment seemed huge, and then the arena and the lights and the podium, I'd never really competed on anything like that. So yeah, it just all felt very new, and I remember doing my Yuchenko double for the first time, which was quite scary at the time, and I think I was last on vault in the rotation, so it was, I just really wanted to prove myself there, and I really wanted to do a good job, and I think, everything just felt overwhelming, but also felt incredible.
Did you have your coach with you in Glasgow, Kelly?
No, so he wasn't picked to be a team coach, but he was in the crowd, which was nice.
Was that a newer experience for you? Obviously, if you'd not been on a GB team until you were 16, you'd probably typically have your coach with you all of the time, and then you go on a national team, and when you go away, it's kind of a luck of the draw whether your coach is going to be there or not. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, I'd probably done a few internationals at that point where he wasn't. But for the most part, he'd travelled with the team and he'd been there, so that definitely was different to, suddenly have coaches that you kind of know, but it's nice, and I love having my coach on the floor, and I really would have loved him there every single time, because I think we had a great relationship, and he really helped you on the floor, so it is difficult when they're suddenly not there, and, they're in the crowd, and you can't speak to them if something little goes wrong in the warm-up or something's a bit weird. It's nice to just have that stability, but we had great teammates at the time, and I felt very comfortable with everyone, so he trained me as well to work with other coaches, and we went a lot away as a club when I was younger, so it was okay.
What would you say, what piece of advice would you give a young athlete, Kelly, that maybe is going to experience that this year, next year, in the future? When you go away for the first time with another coach, what was your mindset? Was it, right, I'm just going to listen to everything that they say? Because sometimes your coach will give you feedback and say, remember to do this. And then you've got a national coach that's telling you the other thing. You're like, which one do I listen to? What would be your best advice for a young athlete that's going to be in that situation? What did you adopt in terms of your approach to that situation? Would you just be like, right, whatever the national coach says goes? And is that a conversation you would have had with your coach beforehand? Or was it trying to, right, I'm going to listen to this and I'm going to listen to this?
Yeah, it's hard.
It's difficult, right?
It is, yeah. I think your coach before, so I'd speak to Keith before, and he'd remind me of everything to think about, but he'd also communicate with those coaches, and it was very open. And I think your gymnastics as well. And I didn't, only you saying this now makes me think about it, but I didn't really think too much about having the different coaches, because you do all the prep camps at Lilleshore, and you do all the the control competitions, and your coaches are kind of on the balcony away, so you do get used to not having them there. It didn't seem probably as nerve-wracking as you might think it is.
Were you the type of athlete, Kelly, that would still ring your coach, kind of day by day, session by session? Because I was someone that didn't really. I would maybe speak to Sergey once in the week, but when I was there, it was kind of, I know what he's going to say. I pretty much follow his every word anyway, so that's kind of voice is echoing in my head. Would you ring Keith when you were away? Let's say you were away for 10 days or 2 weeks without him there. Would you ring him and talk to him every day?
Yeah, he'd always ask for a text at the end of the day, so I'd always just give him a quick update, but he never wanted much, and I think he was so experienced as a coach that he kind of knew that they're the ones there with you at that time. They're seeing it as it happens, so they know best, so kind of liaise with them, and if you need me, I'm here. But he kind of trusts the coaches and trusted me, but he just wanted to be kept in the loop, and the coaches were keeping him in the loop as well. It worked well.
What did you feel like your role was in that team, Kelly? You're quite young at that point, you're new onto the team, you've not been on the senior team for very long. When you went to that Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, what did you feel like your role was on that team?
Yeah, well,
did you compete all apparatus there?
I did vault and floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I knew it was to gain experience. I knew we had a Worlds and stuff later in the year, and I knew it was my first big one. And I was put on the team to kind of to do that vault and to deliver that for the team. So gymnastics-wise, I knew that was my event, that they needed the double twist, and that was mine to deliver. And outside of that, I knew it was, I wanted to be a positive teammate. I didn't want to, ever throw a straw or be anyone who would bring the team down anyway. So I always wanted to have a good attitude and help the team as best I could. Really.
Was that communicated to you, Kelly? Was that like something that the national coaches said, like, Kelly, this is your job? You're here for experience, but we need you to do this vault. Or was that just something that didn't need to be said? You knew in your head that this is my role. Yeah,
I think it was said. I can't remember if it was the national coach or Keith, but I think we kind of knew as well in the lead up. I was like, I know I need this vault to help the team. So that was kind of, I put a lot of attention towards that to try and, because I think that was the weaker event at the time for England as a whole. So my coaches and I kind of saw that gap, and I had 2 vaults at the time, which not many gymnasts had. So we kind of, leaned that way to almost,
And what did you do then? So after that Commonwealth Games, Kelly, what did that do for you? What did that do for your confidence? And how did you use that as a springboard then going into the next year?
Yeah, well, for me, I remember standing on the podium and thinking, if I never do anything again, like, my career before this has been worth it. Like, I thought it was the best thing ever. It just felt huge. And then I think it just motivates you to want to do so much more. The feeling I got and the experience I got was amazing. And I just wanted to keep going and keep working hard. And again, I'm mentioning Keith a lot, but he kind of, the sky's the limit. He always wanted to push and learn a new skill and keep going. And I didn't have much belief in myself, so he really drove me in terms of kind of get that belief. And we knew we had a Worlds at the end of the year, so I think it's just one thing. You just move on so quickly in gymnastics. So it was like, what's next? What can I aim for? Worlds in China. So that was the next kind of set of trials that came along really quickly.
Were you part of that team in China, Kelly?
Yeah, I was, And
what was that like? A step up again, right?
It was, and a really different country as well. So a whole new experience there. I think there was 7 of us with a reserve.
Okay.
6 or 7. So it was a massive team. All the personal coaches were there, all the support teams. So it was a really big team. And again, to go to a Worlds and kind of, Simone and see all the Americans again was just in a big arena. Amazing.
And Keith had athletes that had competed at that level before?
Yeah, so Keith was a men's coach for most of his career.
Right, okay.
With a really strong men's team, so we had some men in the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And then you
Do you remember when?
Oh, I shouldn't I?
I'll have to get him on.
You'll have to get him on. I'm sure he'll have to come on. I'll have to call him after this. I'm not sure the years, but then he switched over to women's.
Oh, wow, amazing. And he'd been a successful coach on the men's side and then switched to women's coaching.
Yeah.
Do you know when he made that switch?
No, but I think it was the majority of his career was men's.
Really? So that's really interesting, because that doesn't happen very often. I can't really think of anybody else that's maybe done that.
I think he was getting older and he thought it'd be an easier ride.
Right, okay.
He realised it wasn't.
No, probably not. Sergey used to tell me, he said, "Hey, Sam, I coached women for 2 years, never again."
That's what he said. He said, I wish I could go back to men's.
Oh, amazing. So that's great that, obviously you both had that experience, and he's competed at the highest level in terms of having athletes there with the men and the women. That's a very unique experience. Yeah. Could you tell that he'd worked in men's gymnastics? And what I mean by that is, were there differences in the way that he approached his coaching or not? Because that's quite unique, right? That he's worked in men's for so long. Was there maybe he focused more on conditioning? I don't know. I'm just kind of like thinking, because that's really cool that he'd transferred over to women's.
No, it is. He didn't like beams. That was probably the showing. So kind of Debbie and Kerry and my former coaches would kind of step in that way.
And would he do that? Was that a conscious thing? He would go, okay, beam, it's not really the apparatus for me. I'm going to bring other people in that know what they're doing. Yeah. Would he still also coach as well? He did coach it. Definitely. He was kind of my main coach, but he knew that wasn't his. He just tells me he doesn't enjoy beam as much, right. But he'd still have me doing, try standing full and let's do a full in off. Like, he loved the big skills, so he would love that side of things, which is probably why I didn't like beam as much, because he didn't, and I loved bars because he did. But I don't know if there was a difference because he coached men's. He was just a workhorse, and I think maybe repetitions. I don't know if that comes from the men's side, but I was as well, and. I don't know. So tell me about 2015 then, Kelly. The University Games, all of this time, so you turn 16, you make the senior team. Are you studying for this whole time and the space in between that? Yeah,
so I came out of my GCSEs and then went to college, and I studied there for 3 years. And then I went straight on to university. So when we went to China, that was when I started uni. So I'd missed the first kind of month, I think, of uni. which was really scary because you just get this calendar and you don't know anyone and you're trying to work out like where my rooms are and you're trying to like read the lecture slides, but they don't make sense because you kind of have to be there. So I was debating my decision at that point. Was it the right thing to do? But I split my year, so I did my undergrad over 5 years.
Okay.
And then did a master's for 1 year.
What university did you go to, Kelly?
Southampton, down in
Southampton.
Solent.
And what did you study?
Sports science.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved education and I wanted to give myself a good shot coming out with sport because I knew anything can happen. And and I really enjoyed doing that. And I was lucky. I was probably Keith's only athlete at the time, so we were able to sit down, look at my timetable and be like, you know, I've got lectures here, I've got 3 hours here. And I think as long as we hit the kind of 6 hours a day in the gym, he didn't mind whether I did it like in the morning, in the evening.
Okay.
So my timetable would be very different just to try and get to as many lectures as I could and make it work. So.
And I can't imagine there were many other female gymnasts, right, on the squad studying as well.
Yeah, at that time, I don't know. I think Hannah did it and Beth did it, and a few of the other guys, but I don't know if there was anyone at the time. Yeah.
So it's quite a unique way to go, right? That's not the typical, right, you turn 16, you go full time, you go for it.
Yeah, it was. And I was quite apprehensive, like asking Keith if I could almost do it because I think he had a lot of doubts at the start because it's quite full on.
Trying to manage both.
Yeah, trying to manage both and almost not, sacrificing any of them. My parents really like encouraged education, but after I'd got my GCSEs, they were like, "You've got this great shot in gymnastics, and if the uni has to wait 5 years, you know, put it on hold." So there was a lot of back and forth, like, should I do it? And I went to visit some unis, and Solent said, we will support you as best we can, like, as long as you'll put the work in. So, you know, we took a risk.
How do you feel that benefited your gymnastics, Kelly? Having something else on the side, so it's not just, you're not just Kelly the gymnast, you're Kelly the student as well.
Yeah, I feel like I'm such an advocate now for like having a dual career, and I think it massively helped me if I think for so many reasons. I think if I was in the gym and I had a really bad day, just to go to uni and they didn't really ask me about gymnastics that much. So going there and just, forgetting about it. Or if like uni was a bit rough, I could kind of let off some steam and be in the gym. And I think for those major competitions as well, I'd come back, and a lot of people have said they struggled to get back in the gym after them, whereas I found it so easy because I had to snap back into uni like that, and I had to, catch up really quick. And so the gym just slotted in as well, and I found that such an easy transition compared to a lot of people. So I think, it just massively helped take the pressure off both sides. And I'm so grateful for having it.
Tell me about the World Student Games then, Kelly, because it's a massive competition, right? But it's a competition that we don't necessarily take that seriously in Great Britain. I know on the men's side in particular, a lot of the student athletes are constantly trying to wrestle with British gymnastics to try and get them to, come on, just put a team in. It's just some paperwork you got to fill out. We'll pay for it ourselves just to get there. And many other countries take it very seriously. I know in Russia, they all go and compete at the World Student Games, even though they've probably not been to school since they're about 10.
No, honestly,
so I never know how are they actually qualifying as students. I think they just have to have gone to school at some point in their life. Whereas in the UK, you've had to properly study and be at university. So you're competing against some of the best athletes in the world, right? So the best Russian athletes, Chinese athletes, Japanese athletes, American athletes. What was that experience like? And did you feel that in terms of, because I always felt that it was looked upon as a competition that's not that important. It doesn't mean that much. Did you feel that? And then just tell me about what is it actually like at a World Student Games? Yeah,
I think honestly that is one of the most defining moments in my career. And like you said, not many people really know about it. And there was so many top gymnasts there at the time. Like, it was such a hard competition. But it was amazing. I remember I was selected for the European Games, which I got back 5 days before. I then flew out to Gwangju, so that was really tight. We obviously had Worlds in Glasgow, which I wanted to do back end of the year. So again, it was a little bit of a battle for me with British Gymnastics to say, please, can I go? And they did agree to support it. And I remember I had the most shocking European Games ever. We went out to Azerbaijan, and it was my first major all-around, I guess, competition there. And the crowd was so restless. There was fights going on in the crowd and people being dragged. It was mental. And I had such a shocker. I think I got a 0 on vault in the vault final. And fell off beam 2 times. It was just, and I was so distraught after it. And I had 4 days to kind of pick myself up and fly out to Korea. And I got to go out with Keith, which was lovely. So that was the first major, really, he was properly on the floor with me. And it was only me and him for the women. There was no other
So you just went as an individual?
Yeah. I think there was a few other students who I was hoping were going to, but they didn't get the qualifying score. So, but GB had a men's team, which was great. And Keith and I flew out. And I got to be the flag bearer actually at the opening ceremony,
really?
which was
mad.
mad.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was the day before the qualification, so there was lots of and and shall I do it? Am I allowed to do it?
I bet you're glad you did that now, though, right?
So glad. There's so much waiting around, so I can see it. And me and Keith decided we'll wave the flag, we'll walk around, and then we'll just get straight on the bus and go back. So we won't actually stay for the whole thing. But to do that was incredible. And I feel like there was a lot of pressure after that because I was like, oh, they've selected me for flag bearer, like they expect a good job here. So that was a bit of added pressure, which didn't help from like the experience I just had. But I remember it was incredible, and I think maybe having Keith on the floor was just, that extra bit of comfort, and we kind of talked through each event as we went through. And I qualified in third, I think, and made 3 finals with a kind of a full. And I just thought, if I replicate that would be, amazing just to get a medal. And the all-round was crazy. I think we started on vault, and I was in the lead and we went to bars and did a good bars. And then there were so many incredible athletes on beam, and they'd all went before me and got like scores which I couldn't even imagine getting. And I thought, I just have to stay on the thing, otherwise it's kind of over. And I remember staying on and just seeing Keith's like arms shoot in the air, kind of we were still in contention. And I was 0.1, I think, ahead of everyone else going into floor. And I knew I had a good floor, but it's so nerve-wracking, isn't it, going into that last event? And I never expected to win, and I still think back, and it was probably my highest all-around score. And my parents flew out to watch, so everything just came together, and it was such a special memory. And a couple more finals and a few medals the next day as well, and it really boosted my confidence, and that was my first kind of major all-around win. So it was huge for me, kind of going into the back end of the year.
What do you think then, Kelly? Obviously, there's 4 days between getting back from Baku and then going to the World Student Games. You go to Baku, have a bad competition, get a 0. Yeah. What happened in those 2 weeks for you then to go and have that amazing... Can you pinpoint anything? Was it like a confidence, a mindset, having what was it? Because that's, you're the same person that you were 2 weeks ago. What do you think that was?
Yeah, I don't know. It was. I was really grateful to have another opportunity so quickly. So I think I had to try and reframe it like that. Like instead of, there was a lot of nerves obviously, and I thought if I go and repeat the same thing, my confidence is going to be on the floor, and it wasn't great at that point anyway. But I just knew we had another opportunity so quickly, and we took day by day. We kind of tried to break some things down as best we could and make a few little changes.
Did you change any of the structure of any routines? Did you keep them the same?
I think we changed. I think I did my second vault as my first vault.
Okay.
So we kind of swapped that around because that needed a bit of work after that one. But apart from that, things stayed pretty steady.
Yeah, and you don't want to change things too much, do you? Because if the coach starts coming and say, let's take that out, then you're like, why? Do you not trust me to do it? Like it's a difficult balance, isn't it, to get right, like after a competition like that?
Yeah, and you do trust your coach. And I think even if you don't believe in yourself, you like to think a coach wouldn't say you can do it unless you actually can, and you put that trust in them. So you kind of sometimes have to just stick to your guns. You can do it. You've done it 1,000 times before. And
what are you thinking? What frame of mind are you in, Kelly, when you do that final floor routine and you're under pressure? Are you thinking, right, don't make a mistake, don't step out, land on your feet, go for it 100%? What are you thinking one skill at a time? Because those thoughts start coming in, don't they? And you're like, I'm nearly there, I could do it if I stay on, don't fall off. How do you quieten that down? Because I think that'd be a great thing for young girls, young gymnasts, but anyone really, any athletes or male gymnasts to hear. Like, how do you shut out that noise in a moment like that?
Yeah, well, I think I went to floor and we had our 3 minutes, and I was so energised and excited. And I had a whip fill in as my second tumble, which is quite like a technical tumble. Yeah. And I think I just went to my face and I was like, oh God. And Keith was like, just calm down, you can do it all. And I think just the adrenaline. So that literally brought me back to reality. And I thought, right, just focus on your skills. It was a difficult routine. And I think I just thought one tumble at a time. But the closer you get, the more excited you get. So it's just staying in the moment. And I think even if, my final tumble, a double pike, I know how to do that in my sleep. But I think just having kind of cues to just keep my mind in the game more than anything was really important in that moment.
What are the conversations you're having on the flight back home then, Kelly? You've got a World Championships coming up and there's not a lot of time between the World Student Games, right, and the World Championships. What conversations are you and Keith having at that point? Is it like, we've done an amazing job here, we're in a good position, this is what we need to do in the trials? Do you know at that point maybe you're part of the team because that was your trial?
Yeah, well, I think if I'm being honest, we were sat down the other end of the plane. We weren't even sat next to each other. But so we'd literally done it was all consecutive, the competitions. I think we had the apparatus finals, and they literally put us on a flight that evening because they wanted us to get back really quickly because I don't think it fully counted as a trial. Obviously, they take it into perspective, but we still had all the trials at Lilleshall and stuff to go. So I think we were still both on cloud nine and just almost trying to, enjoy it for a bit. And then we'd probably have a few days off and then, talk tactics and see what we're going to do.
Yeah, but you went into 2015 thinking we got a good shot here of being on the World Championship team.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, it was always, I would never take it for granted. And I always felt like I was fighting through trials to try and prove myself. But especially after that, I was so excited and I put out really good scores. So I was, hoping to continue that into trials and
And then what was it like being part of that team in Glasgow that have won a team medal, first time in a very long time, if not first time ever, right?
First time ever, yeah.
First time ever, so that's incredible. So you've made history and the women's team are starting to now win medals on the world stage, similar to the guys. What was that like? And how did your role maybe change, Kelly, from a year ago at the Commonwealth Games? You're the young gymnast on the team, just doing floor and vault. You're there to make sure that you're supporting everybody else. Was your role a bit different a year later? Or did you do the same apparatus?
No, I think I did. Well, I remember having a release that I was hoping to get named after me. So I remember.
Really? Wow, what was that?
Yeah, it was a Stolder Pike Catchev.
Okay.
So I'd done it at European Games, and that wasn't an event you could get it named after at the time.
Oh, that's such a strange rule.
I know. I don't know if that's changed now. So I actually did that in qualification, and then a German gymnast did it as well, because there was a little bit of press after European Games about this new skill, which we probably shouldn't have done in hindsight, but it didn't, no. And then she did the skill, and because we both did it on the same day successfully, they didn't name it. So it's now an unnamed skill in the code, which is frustrating.
Is that why some skills are unnamed, because two people do it at the same time?
Yeah.
Really? I've never known that. I've always wondered, why is that unnamed? I thought when I was younger it was because it was a skill that someone did in a competition that wasn't an FIG event. Yeah. But is that the reason why?
Yeah, and it's frustrating because years later now they double barrel it. If two gymnasts do it,
so they can't go back. You should petition for them to go.
Well, Keith was on it and he's gone back to the FIG and he's tried and they still,
No way.
But maybe
wow.
I'll...
yeah, you have to try it yourself.
Maybe I'll hit them up,
Yeah, try it yourself. Okay, so you did bars as well?
Yes, so I think I did floor, vault and bars in, qualification. And it was crazy because even like the arena was different there. It was the first time they'd put the judges almost in the crowd and the arena was blacked out. And I remember we all had a terrible podium because it was just so different to what we'd ever had before. But the whole team was so experienced. So just being with so many experienced gymnasts.
Yeah, you had real depth around that time,
massive
right?
Depth,
yeah, massive. I mean, Cloudy was doing incredibly well around that time. I remember there being a lot of pressure on her after the Commonwealth Games the year before. She was being built up. And I was like, well, this is a lot. She's only 16. I can remember that feeling like a lot of pressure on someone's shoulders. Yeah. But you had an amazing team there. What apparatus did you compete on in the team final, Kelly?
So I didn't compete in the team final. It was touch and go if I was going to do bars or not. We were. So
was it a 6 gymnast team?
6 in a team. 6 in a team
and only 3 go up?
Yes, in the team final, yeah.
So that must be quite difficult when you're on a women's team, right? Because you only have 4 apparatus.
Yeah.
Whereas on a men's team, if it's 6 up, and it's typically only 5 now, you've got 6 apparatus, the chances are you're going to have a strength somewhere. Yeah. But with you only having 4 apparatus, at times that might happen. What's that like? What's that like competing in the qualifying and then not competing in the team final?
Yeah, it's difficult. And I think we came third in the qualifying, which was amazing, and that qualified the team to Rio. Yeah. So that was amazing to be that. And then, I know it was literally down to the wire, who's going to go on bars. So it's difficult, isn't it, to kind of keep your head there. And you literally do everything until you march out, so you just never know. But once you get there, everyone's just so supportive of each other, and it was amazing to replicate the qualification in the team final. And I remember watching kind of Russia were having really uncharacteristic mistakes, and everyone was half an eye on kind of them, and it was mad. Kind of
inside, are you celebrating? Are you?
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want to. Obviously, that can get in your head as well. It's so strange,
isn't it? Because people ask that, and you're like, well. You're lying. Someone's lying if they're saying, no, I don't want anyone to fall. They're lying. I understand, you want to beat the best, right? And you want everybody to be the best on the day and you still be the best, but...
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want someone to have a massive mare and you've won because of that. And I think Uni Games was special because no one had a mare. Everyone did great, but it kind of helps, doesn't it? If there are some mistakes from oppositions, but
And then, so... Take me through 2016, Kelly, up until, and this is a big time frame, so just take me through the story. 2016 until 2021, when Tokyo eventually happens. What did your career look like in that space of time? Did you have a few injuries?
Yeah, so that was a really, when the rockiness started, I guess, of my career. So obviously 2015, amazing, like kind of buzzing off the back of that. And we went into the gym and worked really hard over Christmas. And then into the January, I'd landed a vault just completely normally and felt a massive pain in my back.
Okay.
And I'd normally been able to, I'd trained through niggles and I was fine. I don't know, you could just keep pushing and it was fine. And I tried to and I knew like instantly something wasn't great. And that was the first time I'd kind of been chucked to see specialists, and I'd had a fracture which they said was 95% kind of across the bone. So you're suddenly chucked in meetings where it's like, should we pin it? Should we, like, what should we do? And obviously going into Olympic year, that's rubbish and it's scary and you've never experienced it before. And they agreed to kind of we had a Rio Olympic prep camp. So we went out there, they agreed to like just shut me down, don't run, jump, swing, just protect it. And I remember being in a room at Lilleshall with national coaches, doctors, my parents, coaches, like everyone, and kind of trying to come up with a plan. And they kind of said, if you don't do the first few Olympic trials, get as fit as you can. And then they agreed to kind of cortisone it and then just try and get your skills back as fast as you can for like the last few trials. So we did that and like was kind of making good progress, and I'd got back to the last trials and I think I was third. Like it was really good, like the final trial, and I was kind of happy that I'd done kind of what they said. But kind of it wasn't enough, so I got put as reserve for that team, which is obviously difficult. You know, you kind of do what you say and you work hard, but we had such depth as well in the squad. And then again, I thought I'll try and come back. I'll try and like prove myself, get my confidence back after Rio. First competition back, I think I won the all around, and then I injured my foot on the floor, so that instantly took me out again. Surgery the following year, and so that was 2 whole years really where I was just wiped out with injuries, which was really, really tough because I'd never, experienced anything like that before. What's that like when you've been someone that's never really been injured, and then all of a sudden you have one and a second one? And you start going, what am I doing wrong? Where's this? How? I don't understand. I'm doing nothing different to what we used to do. But what's that like? It's confusing, isn't it? It's difficult you start trying to control every little thing, and you're looking at your diet and everything. What can we change? Yeah, it's just another world, kind of getting a rehab program and working with the different practitioners. And, you train forever and you're so intense to suddenly, you really can't move or you're in pain like every day. And it's psychologically, it's so different. And I'm glad I've almost had the experience of it because I think it's been so beneficial, like to learn that side of it and, to have like the patience and all of that stuff. But it's so, I think as much as it physically hurts, mentally and emotionally, it hurts so much more just having to sit out and, having to watch your team get better and everything. It's tough. How hard is that watching like a Europeans or a World Championships on TV and you want to be there and you're like, I've got to wait another 6 months now? Because that's probably what was great about the University Games, right? Typically in gymnastics, there's not many competitions, is there? Yeah. So if you have a bad event at a big major, I've got to wait six months to put this right now. Or, it might be 3 months until you start doing the trials. That's tough, isn't it? So to have that time to wait and that everyone else is still fit, they can still train. Yeah. It's hard not to chase the time, isn't it? No, it is. And I think I've made that mistake a lot. But it's difficult because you want to support the team and you really do want them to do well. But I think, it was so hard for me to even look at social media or I couldn't really watch it. What was your approach? Yeah, I switched off everything and sometimes like my parents or my mum with the best intentions in the world, she loved gymnastics and she'd have it on the TV and it would get me so antsy, like just hearing it because you want to be there so much and it makes you feel guilty, like sometimes makes you feel like a bad person for feeling like that. But you obviously support the girls from afar and you text them and everything, but it's very difficult. It's hard, isn't it? It's I remember in 2014 when I injured my ankle and I was doing my rehab at Lilleshall and I was there every week and they would come in to train for the Worlds. And I started doing a little bit of training in the gym and I'd do it at lunchtime when there was no one and I was on my own because I was like, I can't be in the gym with them. I just can't. I can't do it. It's tough, isn't it? It's very difficult. Yeah, it's a really weird dynamic. Unless you've lived it, it's very difficult. It's hard to explain, isn't it? And you feel like, I feel guilty because I'm supposed to, but it's just human nature. You want to be there too. It's just that you want to be doing your part and doing the thing that you love. Tell me then, 2018, Kelly, you go to the Commonwealth Games again. So something happens in the middle of that time frame where things start going well and at least you're fit enough to go to the Commonwealth Games. Tell me about that. Yeah, I was so determined to get back. And going into 2018, I'd had a few really good trials. I went to the American Cup with Keith, which was amazing, because only one gymnast from your country, like girl and male, get to go. Women and male, sorry. So
that's kind of like a bucket list competition as well, the American Cup,
yeah,
right?
Going to Chicago.
You get that picture in front of the big flag.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was so grateful to go. And then we came back, and the British was that week. So I think we flew back on the Tuesday and had to go up to Liverpool on the Friday. And I was exhausted, and everyone was saying, just be careful. Like, you've had great competition so far, just be careful going into the British. And it was Keith's 75th birthday on the Saturday, so I was like, oh gosh. And he's saying...
Really? How old's Keith?
I know,
he looks good for his age, doesn't he? Wow.
His 70th. It was a big birthday.
If he's 70, that must make him nearly 80. I'd be very impressed if he's 80. He's the best looking 80-year-old I think I've ever seen.
Oh gosh, now I feel bad. It was a big birthday. I think maybe it was 70th. Sorry. So I really wanted to do a good job, and I ended up winning the British, which was just so surreal for me. So just to win that, and I was grateful. And he was now, again, this might be a bad fact, but I think he's now the first coach to have a male and a female British champion.
Really?
I think that was...
I need to get this guy on the podcast.
I know.
That's incredible.
Bring him on. He can correct all my mistakes. But that was a huge day for us, and I was so excited. And then, I had won bars the next day, and I think I got a bronze. And that kind of cemented the Commonwealth place, which was such a great start to the year. And I think, that year I went out to Australia to be team captain almost. We'd had a few injuries leading up to that Commonwealths. So Amy and Claudia were meant to be on the team.
All right.
So our two more senior competitors. So we had kind of younger gymnasts coming in.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing, but also a rollercoaster Commonwealth Games for me, and then Europeans and Worlds as well. And I think I'd made the Bards final in Euros and the all-around in Worlds. So it was just... again, an amazing kind of year.
What a huge year that is. And because the Commonwealth year is always special, isn't it? Because you have the chance to do 3 majors in a year.
Yeah.
So to have qualified for all 3 majors, it shows that, yourself and Keith and your training, to be able to do that, you've got something right. To peak 3 times in a year, just how difficult is that to do, Kelly? Yeah,
it is hard. And I look back and I'm like, well, maybe that was too much. Like, we did a lot. But again, I was just so wanted to compete. I wanted to get the experience back. And it's difficult to do, and I think sometimes the gymnastics calendar is just so difficult on athletes, and I don't know if that's going to maybe change in the future, but it's a lot of up and down. It's tiring. I don't think people realise how...
There's not a season, is there? You just train always. You're just always training.
Yeah, and I remember bringing my dissertation to Australia and just trying to get all my uni stuff done in as well. It was, it was a lot, but again, it was amazing.
Yeah, what an experience. What was Australia like? It must have been incredible.
It was great. My parents came to pretty much every competition. They can't come to the hotels or they can't be with you at all, but they loved travelling and kind of watching. And when my dad heard that it was in Gold Coast, he was like, Kelly, no pressure. We never put pressure on you, but I really want to go to Gold Coast. So I was happy to tick that one for my dad.
And then tell me about the run-in then to Tokyo. Obviously, the pandemic happens in 2020, Kelly, but between that time, you've had that very successful year in 2018. What does your story look like between those 2 years?
Yeah, well, again, went into 2019 kind of on a high, done a few good trials, made the European team, and then we had the British kind of a week before. And again, the British, it was going great. We started on floor, I had 3 great pieces, and was kind of in contention going into beam. And then I did a tuck full twist in my warm-up and just landed off the beam, and I fractured 3 of the bones in my foot on that one.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know at the time, and I was first up, so my coaches were kind of like, just take the tuck full out and kind of off you go. So I kind of, I think I did that beam routine on a few fractures, which is crazy.
Wow.
Kind of adrenaline going kind of got me through that one, but as soon as I finished, it swelled up like a golf ball and was so bruised, and that took me out of the European. So again, it was kind of a, building back up year, a rehab year. I'd just about got back for Worlds at the end of the year, kind of as a reserve, because I wasn't fully fit. Again, just trying to battle back, and then obviously 2020 didn't really happen kind of as planned. What
kind of position were you in going into, if the games would have happened? Where were you at the start of that year? Kelly, were you fit and healthy, in good shape?
Yeah, no, I was good going into that year. Obviously, we remembered hearing all the COVID rumours and stuff going in, so it was always, and competitions were getting cancelled before our trials. And I remember we all went up to Lilleshall for the first trial, and Boris kind of shut it down there, and then so we'd just done the podium, and then we had to all go home that night before the trial the next day, so it was just a bizarre year, but I was kind of looking forward to going into that year.
Were you one of the athletes, Kelly, that didn't benefit from that time between 2020 getting extended for another year?
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think it was at the end of 2019, I started to have a bit of shoulder pain, but I was managing it really well. And the plan was to manage it through 2020 and then kind of almost get it checked at the end of the year. So I think I'd had a cortisone injection, but that was dealing really well with it. So I almost at the time remember thinking, okay, great, I'll have some rest time. I'll get my shoulder fully, it will settle and I'll be able to go again. And it just wasn't settling in lockdown. And I was keeping myself so fit, but not using the shoulder. And I remember doing like a Zoom with the GB squad, and there was loads of kind of burpees and press ups and stuff. And I just remember crawling off the Zoom and like being in tears, like I just couldn't move my shoulder. And I knew then like there was something wrong. I'd rested it for months and it still wasn't working, or still was so much pain. So I got on the phone to my physio straight away, and kind of as soon as we could, I got scans. And the surgeon kind of said, you need a surgery now, whether you're going to do gymnastics or not. It was kind of, I wasn't going to be able to use it. So that was crazy, kind of coming out of lockdown straight into a surgery, and kind of, again, I was battling time. So unfortunately, my career, just the big injuries have kind of been at vital moments around kind of Olympic Games and things, which you can't always
But it
control.
seems like you've managed to bounce back every time and gone on after an injury to then have success and go to a major. Around that time, Kelly, obviously everything came out within gymnastics, both on the men's and the women's side. It sounds to me like you have had a very positive experience throughout your career. When all that was happening, did you look at it and go, yeah, I can see what's going on. I've seen that with those athletes. I can see why they're upset and what they're talking about, because it was we would have a conversation when we were younger, the male lads, and we would say, oh, if you have kids one day, you're going to let them do gymnastics. And the answer would literally 9 times out of 10 be, if they were a boy, I'd probably let them do it, but not a girl. Yeah. I'm just interested to know whether you, as female athletes, ever used to have that conversation, what the answer was to it, and were you aware of the stuff that the female athletes came and spoke about during that time?
Yeah, we did. We'd speak about it a lot, and I think almost gymnastics has almost not really gone with the times for a long time. So we were very aware that you guys trained differently to what we were kind of trained through, and it was kind of different men to women. And I think it's very hard when you're in it to kind of distinguish between what is elite sport and what is over the line. Yeah. And I think for me, it took me a long time to kind of almost figure that out, and I still struggle with it sometimes, like what was too much and what wasn't. I know we were pushed hard, and I know some things probably should have been better or should have been a bit different.
How difficult is it when you're still in it and there are athletes that are retired and they're sharing their experiences, but you're still in it, and you're like, well, I do support you, and I want to feel like I want you to know that I'm on your side, but I'm in a position where I can't really say anything here, because it's a very difficult position to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard.
No, I was in that position myself, Dan Keaton's came and spoke out in 2018, very bravely, but he was retired at that point. And myself and I was like, there's not much I can do. I know if I say anything, that's it, I'm cut off. Like, it's very difficult, isn't it? It's a difficult position to be in, particularly if you're someone that's had a very positive experience. Yeah,
and I mean, it was positive, but there was still so many, things that were tough. But I think it's hard to see almost the wood from the trees when you're in it.
What would you put that down to as well, Kelly? Do you think a lot of it was down to the fact that you guys are so young when you're competing at the highest level? You're turning senior at potentially 15, 16 sometimes. Yeah. And whereas the men, it's a bit slower, that process. So they turn 16 at 18, but, typically now it's very rare that somebody as a teenager will get onto a men's senior team. So that process is drawn out a little bit more. I think for yourself, you went on to study, right? But typically most athletes don't study. They just go straight into the gym, and you spend 6 or 7 hours in the gym with a coach. Your parents aren't there, and now you're not at school. Like, it's an interesting, it's a strange environment, isn't it? I think gymnastics sits in this unique place of being very full on from a very young age. So not many sports are like that. I think typically athletics, maybe football, cricket, it gets intense when you're 14, 15, 16. Not when you're like 7, 8, 9 years old. You're already doing 30 hours a week. Yeah,
and that's it. And that's all we knew. And that's all the coaches knew. And everyone's, trying to push for such an early age. And it's so exciting now that athletes are getting so much older and still being so successful, which I'm really hoping, that's going to change. And there's so much work now British Gymnastics are doing to change it. And it needed to change. And I'm so happy it did. And it was very uncomfortable, some of the things, like the way it kind of went about. which obviously...
Have you seen that change, Kelly, now? Because you're still involved with gymnastics now, right? Can you see that? I can. Personally,
sure, yeah.
like the gym at Nottingham is such a positive environment to be in. When people ask me that my friends and they might have kids, I always say, yeah, go to Notts, it's great.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're going to be fine. I'm completely confident. That gym's a great environment. There's really positive people there that, you know, want to do their best, but also they have the right systems and mechanisms in place that something would get picked up straight away.
Yeah, and I think it was starting to change before everything came out. It was starting to get better, and everyone who was involved in the sport at that time could see it was starting to make change, albeit quite slowly. But I think, now still being around it, and you know, there was so much noise on Twitter, which kind of, you know, happened, and I think now I'd kind of thought to myself, what can I do to actually, you know, make an input? So the British Gymnastics had kind of advisory boards, and as soon as that came out, you know, I jumped at the chance to be on it to try and help make positive change. So I can see kind of all the work behind the scenes. I'm at Lily Shaw actually this week for like a bit of a work experience week, so it's been really great to... Sarah, the CEO, gave me loads of time yesterday, and we just went for a walk, and, you know, really transparent, and I've talked to so many of the team, and there's lots of people who weren't from gymnastics that are now involved, and that dynamic is brilliant, and it really seems like a massive push to just make gymnastics so much more inclusive and so much happier for everyone, which is, you know, incredible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Tell me then, Kelly, like, you go again, another comeback after 2021, go to the Commonwealth Games in 2022. You're part of that team, you win a gold medal, right? What was that like? You start your career at the Commonwealth Games winning a gold medal and then kind of finish it there if you were going to put a bookmark on it. What was that experience like being 8 years older?
Yeah, it was amazing. I knew that I was getting towards the end of my career, and my body just couldn't train the way I needed to in the gym, so I couldn't get the confidence through like the reps, which I always used to do. So that was getting really frustrating, and I was kind of trying to like hang out just for the Commonwealth Games and really try and push to make a last one. I changed kind of my releases around to try and avoid my shoulder, which had just had surgery. So I did a catch-up half, which twisted around the other shoulder, and just tried to change routines like that to try and just get myself there and get myself on the team. I ended up having a surgery on the other shoulder after that, but it kind of got me to Commonwealths. And it was amazing just to finish on something, a home Commonwealths, have the home crowd there, and that probably in my head at the time, I still wasn't 100% sure, but it kind of felt right to kind of start potentially coming out of the sport. What
led to that decision, Kelly, deciding that, okay, this is probably it, I'm going to think about retiring?
Yeah, I think I just always wanted to do gymnastics to the best of my ability, and I knew getting up to that point, like, training wasn't fun, it was a struggle, there was different pains, and I'd probably have a really good couple of days in training, and then the rest of the week, like, some body part would flare up and I'd had to back off, and it just didn't feel, I don't know, like I didn't go into the competition really positive, thinking it was fun. I wasn't really enjoying it as much because of pains. So it was more a body kind of, I don't want to say giving up, but I just couldn't train the way I needed to.
What did it feel like when you officially announced your retirement? Had you been in your head retired for a while before you officially announced it? And what did it feel like that next day? What was that feeling like?
I thought about it for ages, and then I did have this surgery a few months after, so that kind of bought me time, and I think I wanted to fully make sure it was the right decision, so I did do loads of rehab, and I worked hard to get to the point where my shoulder could be ready to jump on the bar if I wanted to, and I thought, give it that time and then see if you still feel the same way about the decision. So I really gave it a lot of time, and then I announced it this year, so it was almost a whole year since I'd competed to where I fully was sure I made the decision. But it's mad, even kind of, you speak to your coaches about it, and there was still some back and forth there. Not back and forth, but are you sure?
Yeah.
I think my mum would love me to do gymnastics for 10 more years, where my dad was like, it's probably time. And then, kind of telling the national coaches and then getting to announcement, it's quite a long process. So you have a lot of time yourself, but even that day, I remember hitting the button to say, post it, and it was, just goosebumps. It was quite scary.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
How do you feel now, 6 months into retirement? How do you feel?
It's such a process. I don't think I realised how many aspects of your life change, and you have to figure out. I feel really happy, and I'm loving all the opportunities I'm getting and just the freedom and all of that stuff. But I still feel like I'm figuring out every aspect and almost who I am away from, the gymnasts. So.
Do you feel like you're filling what was the gymnastics time with things a little bit, like in the beginning? I remember doing that myself.
Yeah.
Right, let's try all these different things.
100%, yeah. And Claudia and it was actually great because she retired at the same time as me, which is a massive blessing, which I think I would have really struggled if I didn't have her, because there were so many emotions that if I'd have talk to like my colleagues or people, they just wouldn't have quite got it, but she got it. Or if we were, so many different things. Because even we'd walk into a public gym and I'd be like, I don't know what to do. Like, I know my leg strength program, I know my, gymnastics cardio.
I did it for a while, For a while I would do like my rehabby S&C stuff.
It's all you know.
Now I was like, I should start just doing, like, now I'll go to the gym and don't warm up and just bench press. Yeah. Whereas before I'd go and do my gymnastics warm
I know,
up,
and it's like, I don't need to spend all this time or do this.
It's like I was institutionalised to do this thing.
Yeah, it's so strange, which is really hard to put into words, but it's been a massive learning curve.
Yeah, it's nice to go to a gym and not have to do an hour's warm-up before you start doing things. And just like, okay, I can do half an hour of training here and I get quite a lot out of it.
Exactly, yeah.
What do you do now then, Kelly? What is your role? How does gymnastics play its part in that?
Yeah, I find that really difficult because everybody, that's the next question, isn't it? What are you doing now? And I'm like, oh gosh, I feel like I'm winging it a little bit.
I got that too. I got that a few weeks ago and I still, I've been retired 3 years now and I actually stopped and went, I don't actually know. And I was like, And I guess what I do is quite similar to you, though, right? Do lots of different things, go into schools, do the podcast. I coach as well. So I can't really say one thing that I do. I guess gymnastics is the vehicle in which I now try to, provide value, make a living. But it's a difficult thing to answer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, again, I was really lucky. My university snapped me up quite quickly and kind of gave me a role doing the athlete, or I applied for a role doing the athlete lifestyle, like athlete support for the dual career students. So I started that 1 day a week and then I'm on 2 at the moment. And that's been really interesting because I've lived it and I know what it's like to balance a dual career in sport. So I feel I'm learning massively. I've never had a job.
What does that look like, Kelly? Is that like a lot of mentoring or?
Yeah, a lot of mentoring and kind of going between the lecturers and the students to kind of sort timetables and like how is it going to work, and you're kind of the bridge between different people, and also like you're someone to talk to if the athlete needs it. And then kind of sorting out. So there's a TAS program, which is Talented Athlete Support Scheme. So I was kind of heavily involved in that as well. But as I said, I was learning from all of my lecturers around me, and I was so lucky that they've really just helped me massively. Mm-hmm. There's been so many questions, just you don't realise how much you don't know until you come out of gymnastics and you're like, oh, there's a lot of life skills to learn. So I was doing that, but they've been amazing. Different school visits, club visits. I've teamed up with Claudia and we've just got back from Dubai doing kind of, I think we did a teacher conference talk and some school visits and clubs, and we did a skydive as well because you can do that stuff now. So I'm just trying every sport and saying yes to lots of opportunities and really enjoying it.
Amazing. Where can people go, Kelly, if they maybe want to get a school visit from you? Have you come in? I do a lot locally here, but our audience is across the UK. Do they just contact you directly?
Yeah, thank you. I have a website which is kellysimm.com. So there's kind of, school visits. I've done some corporate events which have been cool to speak at and I've learned a lot there. And club visits as well. And my Claudia and I do frags and sim days. So we go around to local gym clubs too.
I've seen them, they look great, but also I've seen you do your part of your school assembly. You were brilliant at it. So, I would definitely recommend it to people. Kelly, the Olympic Games is coming up.
Yes.
So what are your predictions for Paris for the women's team? I'm quite out of the loop now, so I don't really know much about the women's team. I know they've had quite a lot of injuries, right? So the team's kind of, has been a bit all over the place. Obviously, Becky's made the games, which is going to be a big story out there in Paris. Yeah. What are your expectations of the women's team out in Paris? Are you going to watch it?
Yes.
And are you looking forward to watching it?
Yeah, no, I am really looking forward to it. It feels like the first big competition that kind of really excited to watch. I'm definitely removed now from kind of being in the squad. So it's so hard to tell, like you said, kind of keeping up with it. It's difficult knowing what the other teams are doing, but our girls look amazing. I think with kind of Russia out as well, it's a really open field, and I'm so excited, just to watch the girls and the guys as well.
Yeah. One more question I've just thought of, Kelly. It seems to me in the last probably 5-6 years, all of the teams on the women's side have got a lot closer to the stronger depth, because I typically remember like 10-15 years there was maybe 3 teams, maybe 4 that were really strong and a big drop off, and now there are lots of women's teams that are very strong. America aren't winning by 10 marks anymore. It's a lot closer. What would you put that down to, Kelly?
Yeah, I don't know. I think even last year at Worlds it was kind of Brazil and I think Italy.
The Italians are very good.
So it makes it really exciting. I don't know. I think a lot of the athletes are getting older, so a lot of athletes are staying in the sport for longer, which is exciting. I don't know what I put it down to, if I'm completely honest. It's just really great that there is such depth, because like you said, there was the top 3 who you knew were going to be on the podium, and now it's so open.
Yeah, and obviously the American team have got Simone Biles competing potentially her last Olympic Games. I don't know. Have you seen any of the stuff that she's doing this year, the gymnastics she's been doing this year? Is she doing anything new? Is there anything that you would, as a male gymnastics fan or someone that's going to watch the games, or anything I should be looking out for? Is she doing any new moves or anything, big new skills?
Yeah, well, I just watched her documentary. It came out last night, so I
really?
binged it last night.
What's that? Is it on Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Something about rice.
Okay, is it good?
It's amazing, yeah.
Is it really good?
I'm almost at the end of it.
How's it shot? What kind of a documentary is it?
Behind the scenes,
Okay.
It kind of went from, I'm not sure, it was a few years ago now, and it's kind of up to Paris.
And they followed her?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's really great, because obviously she had the struggles. It was actually before Tokyo it started being filmed, so she had the struggles there, and yeah, I mean, she trained double piking, isn't she? And all of that. Her difficulty is on another level. It's crazy.
It's amazing for you guys as a sport, right, that you have somebody like that, because she is universally recognised now as one of the greatest athletes, which brings a huge platform. And you see the popularity of women's college sport in America is massive, and you just hope that translates then to the sport as a whole globally. But to have somebody like that, and she's very special.
Yes.
It's not very often you get someone like that that really is like an icon in your sport. So, yeah, I'm sure, again, you're going to have so many young girls wanting to get into gymnastics after watching the Olympics this summer. What advice would you give parents, Kelly, that are thinking about getting a daughter into gymnastics, but maybe are a little bit unsure because of the things that have happened? Because I still have those conversations with parents, and they're a bit like, I don't know because of what happened. What would be your advice for parents thinking to potentially getting their daughter into gymnastics?
Yeah, I think first of all, they've got to love it, and it's got to come from them first of all. So let them try it. Speak to the coaches at the clubs. Don't be afraid to kind of have that interaction. And I think the sport is getting so much better, and it's developing every day. And it looks, from the inside, that I'm starting to see, and the conversation I'm starting to have, it's going in the right direction. And just find a sport that they love. Don't push them. Support them, and just have the conversations, keep the communication open with the child and with the coaches, and I think they'll probably start to recognise through the child if they love it, if they don't, and just support, really.
Amazing. Kelly, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I've loved learning a bit more about your story, and all the best. Enjoy watching the Olympic Games this summer, and hopefully loads of people get you into their schools to do lots of visits.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly.